Welcome back to the Daily Dean. So let's talk about psychology and common misconceptions you may have known, because this is what I thought and this is what I actually believed until I became more educated, because I've been taking classes related to psychology, and this is some of the things we learned. This right here is a book I got from a teacher. It was his when he was a junior in college, so it's like 20 years old now. And basically, it's in his words, it's a historical artifact more than an actual book to read things or learn things from. And as I was reading this, and I was comparing it to my own textbook in my own classes, I was thinking, wow, this is actually really relatable to what we've learned before. And I'm telling you this because it's going to get more relevant later on. The first beginning chapters of this book begins with Gabriel Grande. He's a dude who's like, in a seminary, where it's like a school or something, and he, is battering the walls and screaming in the middle of the night because he says he's battling dark angels. Some dude calls up a psychologist, and he asks the psychologist, "Hey, yo, do you think this is a psychological or demonological problem?" Because obviously, in this like a religious clergyman's, clergy dude's, perspective, a demon is an actual problem that, he believes is possible. But to the psychologist who is explicitly mentioned in this book to not be religious, it becomes apparent, like, no, it's not really a demonological problem, it's actually psychological. And this brings up a very common idea in psychology called models, paradigms, perspectives, explanations, other things. Basically all meaning the same thing. There's multiple ways to explain behavior and, the mind and humans without, settling on one theory or, unifying idea. What these are called are paradigms, or really more easily, perspectives. One perspective might favor biology. It might say that the brain and the body and the gut and the stomach and the muscles all influence a person's personality. All those chemical interactions change how they act and other stuff. Another person might say, what if it's actually more related beyond the mind, more philosophically stating like, oh, what if it's all, cognitions, and you can find out a person's subconscious through these like, tests that test their like, cognitive, abstract ideas. And those two, obviously are obviously different ways of explaining a person's behavior, but both still very valid because there's ways to test it, there's ways to research it, and ways to explain it. Because psychology, this is the common misconception, is not an overarching like idea or science like you might see in physics. And although physics and other sciences have changed as more research has come about, it's really just about researching things and continuing asking new questions in order to find out the next big explanation or next big piece of evidence to contribute or reject some theory. Or to contribute and support to, or disprove or unsupport another theory. So there's multiple perspectives that explain human behavior, and that's what I wanted to get to. Another common misconception that I believed, if, say, boom, you're on a plane, a person sitting next to you is a psychologist, and she says, oh, what do you do for work? Oh, yeah, I'm a psychologist myself. And you start thinking, oh, wow, this woman's gonna totally, like, nitpick my brain as I'm talking. Not necessarily. There's multiple ways to research psychology. One person might be really good at detecting or might be really good at analyzing or, treating somebody's bipolar disorder or some other related psychiatric problem because that's their specialty. They're a psychiatrist. But there's multiple forms of psychologists, like clinical researchers who research happiness, a clinical researcher who researches what's another thing? First impressions, right? Racism, prejudice, other things that aren't necessarily all going to be like, totally practical if you're on a plane making conversation about your pets or your cats. The idea that, you're sitting down in an armchair and the dude is or a person is asking you a question like, how does that make you feel? That's a psychoanalyst. That's another type of psychologist, usually related to Sigmund Freud. That's like the whole idea, like, what does this make you feel? What do you subconsciously think of when I show you this picture? But not really the, whole pinnacle of what psychology really is about. Researching multiple different things. Psychology is all about the mind without necessarily being about disorders or other, related things. Now let's talk about treatment. Treatment for disorders and other abnormalities and things that cause people distress or, danger or cause themselves to be dangerous to themselves are not necessarily all treated through therapy or through talking it out with the therapist. Therapy is one form of treatment that is not necessarily a cure-all. It might be great for a person with an eating disorder, or a person with bipolar disorder, or a person with schizophrenia. But Other forms of treatment might include medication, might include, a combination of medication, psychoanalyst therapy, and community, like welfare, or not welfare, some community form of treatment. But there's more to treatment than just sitting down and talking. There's lots of ways to help somebody, and not everybody is cured by the same things, or not necessarily cured. Not cured isn't necessarily the right word. Not everybody is treated correctly to the 100% like that they can in the same ways. So remember that if you recommend somebody to get therapy for their own problems or their own things that cause them distress or issues, be a little wary, be a little aware, be a little concerned that, hey, you are coming from a good place, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be like, that's going to be the best thing or best case in their scenario. Because once again, treatment takes a lot of different factors, takes a lot of different forms, and isn't all necessarily solved through like one therapist. This is actually related to that. You might need multiple therapists to find the right one, because not every therapist treats something or treats a problem or treats a disorder or treats a psychiatric issue the same way. So not everybody is the same, just as you might meet different chefs or different novelists or authors and stuff. So common misconceptions out of the way. I'm really interested in psychology. I wouldn't call myself a geek nor a buff, because that's related to history. But I think that this is all the things that I wanted to cover for now. So I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope you learned something. Bye.